Hello everyone, welcome back. Hi, welcome Harshu. How are you doing, dear? Good morning. Hello Kitty, welcome, dear. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Good morning to you. Comments your beautiful name. I am good. How about you, dear Kitty? What's a good name? Yes, Harshu. Welcome, everyone. Eva. Welcome back, dear Eva. Here is your good name. How are you? Nightbot is back. Let's see who is next. Comments of beautiful names. Kai Ray. Hello, dear Kai Ray. How are you? Here is a good name. Hi, Syafri. Welcome. Hi, Eva. Meenakshi. Hello, dear Meenakshi. How are you? Here is your good name. Hello, dear Daslin. How are you? What a unique name you have. Welcome. Oh, lots of love, dear Kaire. Rudra. Is it okay? Okay. Have a good day, dear kitty. Bye. Take care. Let's see who is next. Oh, yeah, I know. Hi, dear Krupa. Here is your good name. How are you? Welcome. Walaikum assalam. I am good, Mahi. How about you? Here is your good name. Hi, dear Alia. Here is yours. Hello, dear Arushi. Here is your beautiful name. How are you? Oh, good to hear. Hey, dear Kaden, here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Ishan, here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Fatima, here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Maliha, here is your good name. Yes, Mahi. Hi, dear father, here is yours. Hello, hi. Hey, dear Raju, here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hello, dear Kai, here is your good name. Hello, dear Tosif, here is yours. Hi, dear Heaven, here is your good name. Hello, dear city, here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Harry, here is yours. Hello, dear Julia, here is your good name. Hi, dear Thays, here is yours. Hi, dear Suhaima, welcome back. How are you? Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Umama, here is yours. How are you? Hi, dear Murdoch, here is your good name. How are you? Hello, dear Zahu, here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Admario, here is your beautiful name. How are you? I am fine, good to hear, dear. Hey, dear Manar, here is yours. Hey, dear Rifat, here is your good name. Hello, dear Musubi. Here is yours. How are you? What a unique name you have. Hello, dear Arfa. Here is your good name. Hello, dear. You're most welcome. Aku. Here is yours. Hi, dear Rahul. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Servinos. Welcome back. How are you? Have a good day. Hey, dear Diaz, here is your good name. Hello, dear Asma, here is yours. Hey, dear Shivam, here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Cathy, here is yours. Hello, dear Ryan, here is your good name. How are you? Hi, dear Sasa. Here is yours. Hello, dear Dallas. Here is your good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hi, dear Millie. Here is yours. Hi, dear Hussein. Here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hey, dear Helen. Here is yours. Hi, dear Anu. Here is yours. Hi, dear FM. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Sohail. Here is yours. Hello, dear Sabria. Here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hello, dear Shanvi. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear maid. Here is yours. How are you? Hey, dear Hannah. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Hasnan. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Junaid. Here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hello, dear RJ. Here is yours. Hi, dear Hannah. Here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hi, dear Alicia. Thank you for subscribing. Here is your good name. How are you? Hey, dear Suraj. Here is yours. Hi, dear Guri. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Harshit. Here is yours. Hello, dear Adrian. Here is your good name. Adrian with a star? Let's do it. Here is yours. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear. Oh, here. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Vivian. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Muhammad. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Shehbaz. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hey, dear Aso. Here is a good name. Thank you so much. Hi, dear Sakti, here is yours. Hello, dear Rain, welcome back. How are you? Hi, thank you so much. Hey, dear Arman, here is yours. Hello, dear Umme, here is your good name. Hi, dear. Hello, hi. What is a good name? Shabana. Hello, dear Shabana. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Kirtana. Hey, dear Kirtana. Here is your beautiful name. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. Hi, dear Alina. Here is yours. Hi, dear Sanvi. Here is your good name. How are you? Hello, dear Indira. Here, Indira. Here is yours. Hey, dear Eva. Here is a good name. New here. Most welcome, dear. What's a good name? Hi, dear Turkan. Here is yours. Merhaba. Me Selson. Hi, dear Sanvi. Okay, dear Sanvi, don't worry, here is yours. Guys, don't forget to double tap on your screens, and there is a subscribe button waiting for your finger press. Let's see who is next. My name is Ishal. Hi, Ayan. Welcome, Elise. She is taking screenshot, guys. Just give her 1 minute. Hi, Varun. Hello, King. Hi, Tisha. How are you all? Okay, let's move to the next name. Hi, dear Sufyan, here is yours. Hi, dear Manita, here is your good name. How are you? Hello, dear Noor, here is yours. Hi, dear Warjun, here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Divya, here is yours. You're most welcome, dear, anytime. Hi, dear Alice, here is yours. Hi, dear Zahra, here is your good name. Hello, dear A. How are you? Here is yours. Hi, dear Zahin, here is your beautiful name. Zahin with a star. Here is yours. You're most welcome. Don't forget to double tap on your screens. Hi, dear Luca. Here is yours. Hey, dear Anthony. Here is your good name. How are you? With a star. Hi, dear Truckwal. Truckwal or Trudgewal? Trudgewal. Hey dear Trudgewal, here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hello dear Connie, here is yours. Hey dear Izozo, here is your good name. Hi dear Kiara, here is yours. Hello dear Sojin. Sojin, here is yours. Hello, dear Arohi. You're most welcome. Here is your beautiful name. Thank you so much for the blessings. Here is yours. Hi, dear Ayushi. Here is your good name. Hello, dear and other Umama. Here is yours. How are you? Hi, dear Aisha. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Clara. Here is yours. Thank you so much, dear. Hi, dear Mubarak. Here is your great name. How are you? Hello, dear Olivia. Here is yours. Hi, dear Cool. Here is yours. Thank you for subscribing. Hello, dear. What is your good name? Irzaldi. Oh, what a unique name you have. Here is yours. How are you? Hi, dear Bhavya. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Anjali. Here is yours. Thank you so much for subscribing. Hi, dear Falak, here is your good name. Hey, dear Lamia, here is yours. How are you? Hi, dear Marnie, here is your good name. Hello, dear Ruby, here is yours. Hi, dear Cass, here is yours. Hello, dear Hida, here is your good name. Hi, dear Navy, here is yours. Hi, dear Rami, here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hello, dear Brooklyn, here is your beautiful name. How are you? Let's see who is next, guys. Hi, dear Danny. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Mila. Here is yours. Hey, dear Sophie. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Inga. Here is yours. Hello. Oh my God. Don't write your names in paragraph, guys. Hey dear Ashman, here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hey dear Haifa, here is yours. What a unique name you have. Hi dear Sabria, here is your good name. Hello dear Alice, here is yours. Hi dear Daisy, here is your good name. How are you? Hi, dear Sangeeta. Here is yours. Sangeeta. Hello, dear. Hi, Sana. Welcome back. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Diala. Yeah, I remember you. Welcome back. How are you? Have a good day. Mishti. Okay, dear Mishti, but one name each person, please. Here is yours. Just for you, dear. Guys, double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button. Alec. Hi, dear Alec. Here is your good name. Hey, dear Guinea. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Alok. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Sarah. Here is yours. Hello, dear Arpita. Here is your beautiful name. Talitha. Hey, dear Talitha. Here is yours. What a unique name you have. Hello, dear Harshin. Here is your good name. How are you? Hello, dear Emily. Here is yours. Hi, dear Noor. Here is yours. Hey, dear Ali. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Huda. Here is yours. How are you? Hey, dear Aaron. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Serenity. Here is yours. Arohi, dear, your name was done. But if you want a screenshot of your name, let me write for you, Arohi. Here is yours. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Double tap on your screens. Let's see who is next, guys. Aiden. Hi, dear Aiden. Here is your good name. How are you? Hello, dear Karen. Here is yours. Hi, dear Ravi. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Afan. Here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hi, dear Farhan. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. And other Hannah. Hey, dear Hannah. Here is your beautiful name. How are you? Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Sifa. Here is yours. Hi, dear Andrew. Here is your good name. How are you? Here is yours. Don't be sad. Rosia. Hi, dear Rosia. Here is you. How are you? Flagging. Hi, Darshu. Welcome back. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear. Hello. Buenas. Stream is lagging. Oh no. I am good. How about you, Darshu? Welcome back. Hi, dear Katie. Here is yours. Your name was done, dear, and it was same as you write in the comment. Katie, hi. Hello, dear Denvin. Here is your good name. How are you? Hi, dear. Stream is lagging. Kanishka. Here is yours. Let me check why the stream is lagging. Is it better now, guys? Is it better now? Treasure, hi. Hello, Khadija. How are you? Let's try Khadija. Hi, dear Khadija. Here is yours. Hi, dear Mitsu. Here is your good name. How are you? Hello, dear Minju. Here is yours. Hi, dear treasure. Here is your good name. Let's wait. Isabel. Hi, dear Isabel. Here is yours. How are you? Hi, dear Lily. Here is yours. Hello, dear Mask. Here is yours. Hi, Joaquin. Welcome back. How are you doing? Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Jamla. Here is your good name. Guys, is the stream is better condition right now? Or is still lagging? Hi, dear Najma. Here is yours. Hi, dear Shriyash. Here is your good name. How are you? Hello, dear Damini. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Sagar. Here is yours. Hi, dear Ruby. Here is your beautiful name. How are you? Miss T. Are you sure, Miss T? Okay, here is yours. Janelle, welcome. Anushka. Hi, dear Anushka. Here is your good name. How are you? Hello, dear Janelle. Here is yours. What a beautiful name you have, Janelle. I really liked it. Hey, dear Sajid. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Priyansh. Here is yours. How are you? You're most welcome, dear. Hi, dear S. E-signatures. Yes. Hi, dear Devraj. Here is yours. I was about to write e-signatures. Literally. Hey, dear Navy. Here is your good name. Yes, Soraya. Guys, don't forget to double tap on your screens. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Bailey. Here is yours. Hi, dear Soul. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Neha. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Camila. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Yana. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Bonnie. Here is yours. Hi, dear Jane. How are you? Here is your good name. Hello, dear Catherine. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, dear Catherine. Hi, dear Ria. Here is your good name. I'm fine. Good to hear. Have a good day. Hello, dear Grace. Here is yours. Hi, dear Elisa. Here is your good name. How are you? Hi, dear Ruben. Here is yours. Hello, dear Rengoku. Welcome back. Rengoku. Here is yours. Hi, dear Sophie. Here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hello, dear Niru. Here is yours. Hi, dear Dika. Diksha. Hello, dear Diksha. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Lindan. Here is yours. Hello, dear Joel. Here is your good name. How are you? You're most welcome, dear Niru. Lots of love. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Stay. Here is yours. Hi, dear Tarek. Here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hi, dear Bolu. Here is yours. Hello, dear. You're you're most welcome, dear. Thank you so much. Lots of love. Hi, dear Hussein. Here is yours. Hey, dear Marnie. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Muklisa. Welcome back. How are you? Here is your beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining again. Hello, dear Millie. Here is yours. Hi, Virgil. Welcome back. Good day to you too. How's your day going, dear? Here is your beautiful name. So happy to have you here again. Thank you so much for joining. Hello, dear Zoya. Here is yours. Hi, dear Inaya. Here is your good name. How are you? Hello, dear Umer. Here is yours. Hello, dear. What is your name? Mariam? Here is yours. Merhaba, Nisalson. Hey, dear Jaylan, here is your good name. How are you? Hello, dear Nada, here is yours. Hi, dear Arush, here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hi, dear Ayan, here is Rengoku. You are the same, right? Here is yours. Hello, dear Talha. Here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hi, dear Fariha. Here is yours. You're most welcome. Hi, dear Riju. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Felix. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Julie. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Faizan. Oh, Faizan is done. I forgot. Hey, dear Faizan. Here is yours. Hi, dear Yuki. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Leonida. Here is yours. Where are you from, dear? You have such a unique name. Have a good day. Hi, dear Kasim. Here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hi, dear Troy. Why not? Here is yours. Let's see who is next, guys. Who is next? Yara, hi. Hello, dear Cadison. How are you? Troy is taking screenshot, so give him 1 minute. Hello, dear Varnika, Ed, or Ade, Zyla, Nilain. Okay, let's move to the next name. Hi, dear Zyla, here is yours. Hey, dear Eddie, here is your good name. Hi, dear Hera, here is yours. Hello, dear, let's try Cadison. Kade? Let me check the spelling, dear. Let me check the spelling. Kadesyn. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Oh, welcome back. What is a good name? Hi, dear Eva. Here is yours. Hello, dear Amelia. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Asia. Here is yours. How are you? Hi, dear Carol. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Isadora. How are you? Here is your good name. Hi, dear Universe. Universe. For you. Hey, dear Hanya. Here is your good name. How are you? Hi, dear Aruj. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Hello, dear Rutila. Here is yours. Yeah, I can understand, Ayan. I forgot the spelling. Oh God. Let me check again. What is your name? Rujila? Rutila. Hi, dear Rutila. Ruti. Yeah, yeah. On the right track. Here is yours. Hi, dear Rosa. Here is your good name. How are you? Hello, dear Rossi. Here is yours. Hey, dear Yara. Here is yours. Hi, dear Tanishka. Here is your good name. How are you? Hello, dear Abby. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, thank you so much, dear. Dear Isabella, here is yours. Hi, dear Liana, here is your good name. Felicia. Hi, dear Felicia, here is yours. Hey, dear Anne, here is yours. Hi, dear Amne, here is your good name. How are you? Don't forget to like and subscribe Nezura. Nezura. Just give me 1 minute to drink water. You're most welcome, dear. You are the cutest. Don't forget to. I am fine. What about you? I am good. Mahi maybe first day पे नाम. Hello dear Camila, here is yours. Update कर दूंगी post के through. Hi dear Muslima, here is your good name. How are you? Hi dear Sinam, here is your beautiful name. Hi dear Ananya, here is yours. Arya, why not dear Arya? Hey dear Arya, here is your good name. Hi dear Nahi. Zara, here is yours. Hello dear Lista, here is your beautiful name. Hi dear Agung. Here is yours. Hi dear Selba, here is your good name. Hey dear Amra, here is yours. Hi dear Amal, here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Milan, here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Hijab, here is your good name. Hi, dear Marcelo, here is yours. How are you? Hi, dear Inaya. Here is your beautiful name. Guys, don't forget to double tap on your screens. And there is a subscribe button waiting for you to press. Fatima. Hi, dear Fatima. How are you, Fatima? Here is yours. Hello, dear Amber. Here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hey dear Kushi, here is your good name. Hello dear Dilshad, here is yours. How are you? Hi dear Sanjana, welcome back. Here is your good name. Bihar N-A-L-L-I. Here is yours. Hi Lily. Hello Fatma. Okay. Hello, dear Lily. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Fatma. Here is yours. How are you? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's see who is next. Hi, welcome. Aditi. Happy birthday, dear Aditi. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Amrit. Hi, dear Maddie. Here is your good name. Thank you so much. You are the cutest. Hey, dear Cardalan. Here is yours. How are you? Hi, dear Sumaya. Here is your beautiful name. Hello. Happy birthday. Hi, dear. Hi, good to take care. Thank you so much. You too. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Sivada. Here is yours. Hi, dear Swanandi. Oh wow, what a unique name you have. Swanandi. Here is yours. Hello, dear Yumna. Here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hadija. Here is yours. Hey dear Hadija, here is your good name. You are an enemy? You are an enemy lover, dear. Hi dear Ahil, here is yours. How are you? Hello dear Siddhi. Lots of love. Thank you so much for the prayers and blessings, dear. Hi dear Kavisha, here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Tekla, welcome back. Here is yours. Hi, dear Cynthia. Here is your beautiful name. Thank you so much, dear. Hi, dear Yusuf. Here is yours. Hello, dear Milena. Here is your beautiful name. Let's see who's gonna be the 80s liker, guys. Two more. Hi, dear Ruhi. Here is yours. It's okay. What's a good name? Kevin. Welcome back, dear Kevin. How are you? Here is your good name. Have a good day, dear Kevin. How are you doing today? Hello, Islamic. Here is yours. How are you? Here is your good name. Hey, dear Jazz. How are you? Jazz. Here is yours. Hi, dear Azia. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Ayan. Here is yours. Ayan bhai, are you the same? Hello, dear Alvira. Here is your good Ayan bhai, is that you? Oh, welcome back. How are you? इतने दिनों बाद भाई. कौन से वाले? कौन से वाले अयान भाई हैं आप? Hi dear Priya, here is yours. I'm going really good. Oh, I am doing really good. So good to have you here. Thank you so much. That's great to hear. Hey dear Camila, here is yours. Hey dear Noemi. फिर आप कोई और हैं, कोई और अयान भाई हैं, मैं जो समझी आप वो नहीं है. But welcome here. Thank you so much for joining. Hi dear Mariam, here is yours. Hello dear Maiva, here is your good name. Hi dear Sejal, here is yours. Hello dear Marwa, here is a good name. Guys, double tap on your screens. Let's see who's gonna be the 87 liker. Hi Dilnura, I am from Uzbekistan. Oh, so good to have you here, dear. I really like your country. Hey dear Ghazi, hey Ghazi, here is yours. Hi dear Fatu, here is your good name. How are you? Vanil, Vanil, what's a good name? Hello dear Ruban, here is yours. Neva, yeah, Universe done I think, right? Just now. I'm doing good, Muslim. Hi, welcome back. How are you? Here is a good name. Let's see who is next. Ishan. Hi, dear Ishan. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Akil. Here is yours. Hello. Okay, okay. If you want a screenshot of your name, अरे अरे दोबारा लिखती हूँ 1 मिनट. सॉरी सॉरी मेरे से गलती होगी, गिर गया था. नहीं पता नहीं क्यों, पता नहीं मुझे भाई. दूसरा दिन है आज. Manan, welcome. Hi Swara, hi Eden, hey Winter. Manan, Swara, and Eden. Here is yours. Hello, dear Winter. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Sarah. Here is yours. Hello, dear Cat Sunny or Guria? गुड़िया. कोई पता नहीं, चुप सी लग रही हैं. हाँ लेकिन क्यों? Hi dear Selenia, here is your good name. How are you? चलो आज मैं मैसेज करके पूछती हूँ उनको. Hi dear Vilia, here is yours. Guys, double tap on your screens. Let's see who is next. Renu. Hi dear Renu, here is yours. Hello dear. Hey, Praneet. Here is your good name. How are you? Hey dear Wano, here is your good name. Hello dear Elder, here is yours. Hey dear Caros, okay. Here is yours. Hi dear Vishal, here is your good name. Guys, double tap on your screen. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Arshal लिखना था मैंने और मैंने क्या लिखने लगी थी? Arshal. Here is yours. Hi dear Hanan, here is your good name. How are you? Hello dear Rinkesh, here is yours. Hello, dear April. Here is a good name. How are you? Hi, dear Eva Savi. Eva Savi. Here is yours. Hello, dear Daryl. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Noah. Here is yours. Hello, dear Helena. Here is a good name. Let's see who's gonna be the 90s liker, guys. Hi, dear Miriam. Here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Kosan. Oh, what a unique name you have. Kosan. Here is yours. Hi, dear Pavi. How are you? Hello, dear. कैसे कैसे बोला था? Hi, dear Jordan. Here is yours. Hello, dear Nyla. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Rumana. Here is yours. Winter. Okay, man. Hi, welcome, Bobby. How are you? What a unique name you have, dear. Let's see who is next. Let me check the spelling. T. Winter, can you please repeat this? Hello जी, hi, welcome. Comment नहीं मिल रहा है. कहाँ पे है comment? Guys, double tap on your screens. Let me check. T Y I E L L and E. Here is yours. बहुत ही प्यार से. Happy birthday, dear. Oh wow. Hello, dear Veronica. Here is yours. Veronica is back. How are you? Hi, dear Raghav. Here is your good name. How are you? Hello, dear Devaki. Here is yours. Hi, dear Tristan. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Ken Hershu. Screenshot. Okay, dear Harshu. Here, Aryan. Welcome, Aryan. Guys, double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button. Waleed from Bangladesh. Aryan. Tabish. हंसना मना है वाले. Um, Aryan. Tabish. Let's see who is next. Firoz Khan. Lucky. After Lucky, Waleed. Zayu. Hi, Zayu. Joy. Irene. Aditi. Guys, let's see who is next. Evie. Hey, dear Evie. Welcome. Hello, dear Slang. Here is yours. Hi, dear Priya. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear sad man. Why are you sad? Here is yours. Hello, dear. Tabish is done, man, just now. Lily. Hi, dear Lily. Here is yours. Hello, dear Jamroot. Here is your good name. What a unique name you have. नहीं, मेरी पोस्ट पे वेरी नाइस वाला कमेंट किया था, उसको पता नहीं कि बनाने वाला मैं हूँ। कौन सी वाली पोस्ट पे, मैंने नहीं देखा शायद, है ना? Hi dear Anika, here is yours. You're most welcome. Hi dear Miss P. Oh, what a unique name. Here is yours. It's not English Sadman, it's a Bengali name, Sadman. Okay. Thank you so much for telling me, guys, dear Sadman. You are from Bangladesh, Sadman. Okay, now I understand. वही वाली जो वाटरमेलन था आपका और मैसेज का। ओह अच्छा अच्छा। Hi dear Dia, here is your good name. वो समझोगे मैंने दिया उनको। Hello dear Christian, here is yours. How are you guys? डबल टैप on your screen जो अटक गए हैं हम, देखो 88 87 पे ही अटके हैं तब से। Hello dear Karan, here is yours. Hi dear family, here is your good name. Hello dear Karan, here is yours. How are you? Hi dear Darshu, here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hey dear Vanday, here is your good name. How are you? Hello dear Logan, here is yours. Hello dear हाँ ना, वो तो उसको पता ही है। Ishan, here is your beautiful name. Hi dear Madison, here is yours. How are you? Hello dear Shravan and Vidhi. And Vidhi, here is yours. Hi dear Yutaka, how are you? Yutaka, here is yours. Hi dear Aradhya, here is your good name. How are you? Hello dear Shagun, here is yours. Hi dear Sabria and Elder. Sabria and Elder or Eder. Here is yours. Hi dear Sidra. How are you? मोजिम भाई आपने मकबहन वाले को सब्सक्राइब किया था क्या? ओ अच्छा जा रहे हो, चलो ठीक है, बाय बाय। Hi dear Shraddha, here is yours. मैंने कर लिया था दोनों को। Hi dear Riya, here is your good name. उनको ही जिनको आप कह रहे थे, भूल भी गए हो भाई गीगल्स को। Hi dear Pearly, here is your good name. How are you? Hello dear Sweta. Sweta, here is your अच्छा दोनों साथ में लिखे हैं, नहीं किया। मैंने दोनों को किया, अभी मैंने देखा है ईटिंग चल रही थी उनकी। Sanjay, here is yours. How are you guys? Double tap on your screens. Come on. अटक गए हैं फिर हम. We are really stuck on 91. Can we make it 100 at least? Hi dear Sina, here is yours. Hello dear Anushka, here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hi dear Rize, here is yours. है ना? Hello dear JSNULI, here is yours. Hi dear Preet, here is yours. Hi, dear Abby, here is your good name. Hi, dear Soumya, here is yours. Hi, dear Mukhtiar, here. अरे क्या लिखने लगी हूँ? Mukhtiar, here is yours. How are you? Hello, dear Anastasia, here is your good name. आप भी ऐसा कर लें क्या? ना मेरे से एक प्लेट ही खाई जाती तो मैंने मुकबैंग करना है वो भी ईटिंग वाला. Hi dear Manvi, here is yours. Okay, genuinely. Here is your good name. Hi dear Harshi, here is yours. How are you? भाई आप ट्राई करो ना. Hi dear Maha, here is your good name. Hey dear Zana, here is yours. Hey dear Saranyaki. Oh, what is the name? Shagun is done, dear. Saranyaki. Okay, here is yours. What a unique name you have. Hi, welcome. Hi, dear Harshi. Here is your. अच्छा आपसे मिस हो गया मुझे लगता है मैंने शगुन लिखा था पर मैं दोबारा लिख देती हूँ कोई बात नहीं. हार्शी लिखना है मैं ये क्या लिख रही हूँ यार बार बार. हार्शी. Here is yours है ना. Hi dear Ayat. Here is your good name. Hi dear Shagun. Here is yours. How are you? Hi dear Sohalia. Here is yours. How are you? You're most welcome. Lots of love. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's see who is next. Hey dear Aryan, here is yours. Hi dear Nazira. Noriza. Noriza. इस वक्त मैं चल के चैटिंग कर रहा हूँ. हैं क्यों भाई? Hello there. I like how you sing while you sign. Oh, lots of love. Glad you like it, dear. What's a good name? Hi, dear Sarah. Here is yours. Hello, dear Shraddha. Here is your good name. How are you? Please, me, Abuela. What is a good name, dear Joel? Sorry, I can't understand this language, dear. So, please write in English or just comment your name. I will understand that this is your name. Dora. Thank you so much for understanding. It is a good name. Hi, dear Daisy. How are you? Here is your good name. Hi, dear Kenna. Here is yours. Hi, I am Sofa. हाय. किसी काम से भेजा है मुझको. आपके घर